we want to get the militia up here. Now, folks, the militia is organized because they have been concerned about our Constitution getting dumped in the can. Oh, also, we want to show them this. These concurrent resolutions here expressing the sense of the Congress regarding the need for the President to seek the Senators' advice and consent to ratification of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. Okay. United Nations consent on the rights of the child. Okay. John Conyers is in on this. He's one of our guys, too. Okay. Now, the bottom line is they're setting standards, all right? And on these standards, whereas it is estimated that every night in the United States at least 100,000 children go to sleep homeless. Whereas, I mean, they make all these allegations. Wherein the United States has the world's largest gross national product, yet American children rank below the top 15 nations in regard to the health and well-being. Whereas in 1989, the infant mortality rate for the United States ranked 19th in the world, being Singapore or Spain. I mean, they make all these allegations about the United States, and the National Commission on Children has declared that every child in America needs an excellent education, yet approximately 40% of the nation's children are at risk of school failure. I mean, they go on and on. Whereas the United States, 2,600,000 children were reported to be abused and or neglected in '91. I mean, this is ridiculous. Whereas it's estimated that 1,800,000 teenagers were victims of violent crime. Whereas the Supreme Court has never fully articulated the range of rights to be accorded to children under the United States Constitution, or fully articulated the manner in the Constitution is applicable to minors. It is. Whereas the positive futures of our families, communities, and nations are dependent. Now, you keep reading all these whereases. Whereas 29 others nations have signed convention indicating their intention to ratify the convention in the future. And then you get down. Whereas it is essential that the United States sign and ratify the Convention on Rights of the Child and begin implementing convention legal standards in order to improve and protect the lives of children. Believe me, they're not trying to protect the lives of children. They're trying to create a new federal bureaucracy. Whereas at the World Summit of Children in September such and such to sign the World Declaration of Survival, Protection, and Development of Children, which would include commitment to work and promote earliest possible ratification and implementation under the United Nations and Conventions of the Right of the Child. Whereas the House of Representatives passed a resolution during the 101st Congress urging the President to seek consent of the Senate to ratification of the Convention of the Rights of the Child. But such action having not occurred, it is necessary that the Congress implore the President to take action on the Convention now. And now they want to push it. Alright? Now, you got to understand, folks, they're not doing this for the children, believe me. They're doing it because they want to create some new kind of problem. Children, tomorrow, I apologize to you on behalf of those in my time for the things we didn't do. We didn't stop the tyrants so your fate could be prevented. We watched them steal our freedom, but our silence we consented. We didn't choose to circumvent the doom you've not escaped, while the Bill of Rights was murdered and the Constitution raped. Some of us were lazy and too busy, others too afraid to think about our children, the ones we have betrayed. We say we were too busy to be concerned or care, to try to ease the burden of the chains we've made you wear. A debt of 17 trillion, more money than exists, because we failed to heed God's call of usury resists. We could have been good shepherds when the wolf got in the fold, yet watch the flame of freedom die, which leaves you in the cold. We changed our great republic, which was forged in blood for liberty, to a socialist welfare state which we call democracy. I'm sorry we were so timid, betrayed by a selfish generation. We left yet a remnant of a free and prosperous nation. I'm sorry for our action, like sheep we have behaved. We could have left you freedom, instead you are enslaved. Children of tomorrow, descendants of our land, I'm sorry we allowed this fate, you now must understand. Children of tomorrow, educate yourself if by reading the Bible to break the chains we left you with maintain. God's 10 commandments, use reason, logic, and common sense. Suffer the little children to come to me, for such is the kingdom of God. Dennis Byron. This come off of the Amateur Radio Freemen's Bulletin Board, September 1992. End of transmission. So I think you can see here, at one time they pretend to do all this, and yet on the other they do all that. So I thought this was very poignant thing to put out on the air and try and hammer across. Okay. Now we want to cover some other things. We want to cover the Brentwood's Agreement Act. And we're trying to hustle up here. What do we got down there? Let's see. Hang loose here. Just a second. I'll pull it. I'll find it. That's the treason statutes, the 22 USC. We want to go for, that's Erie Railroad versus Tompkins. That's the last thing I want to cover. United States. We got Marshall versus Kansas. We got constitutional arguments. We got civil rights. We want to share so many arguments. Oh, yeah, we want to cover the 1-207. Remember I told people about the 1-207? Alright. We want to cover about the 1-207. Remember I told you sign your name 1-207 UCC 1-207 without prejudice. This is it right here, folks. This is the 1-207 Uniform Commercial Code. Can you get that? Okay. Got it? Alright. This section provides machinery for the continuation of performance along the lines contemplated by the contract. What contract? The bankruptcy contract. Despite, that's in 1933, pending dispute by adopting the mercantile device of going ahead with delivery, acceptance, or payment without prejudice, under the protest, under reserve, with reservation of all our rights, and the like. All of these phrases completely reserve all rights within the meaning of this section. This section, therefore, contemplates that limited as well as general reservations and acceptance by a party may be made, subject to satisfaction of our purchaser, subject to acceptance by our customer, or the like. This section does not add any new requirement of language of reservation where not already required by law, but merely provides a specific measure on which a party can rely as he makes or concurs in any interim adjustment in the course of performance. When they say performance, they're talking about contractual performance. It does not affect or impair the provisions of this act, such as those under which the buyer's remedies for defect survive acceptance without being expressly claimed, if notice of the defect is given within a reasonable time, nor does it disturb the policy of those cases which restrict the effect of a waiver of a defect to reasonable limits under the circumstances, even though no such reservation is expressed. Now this is all what they're talking about when you write down without prejudice. They're telling you you have a right to reserve your right. So I'm telling you to use it. Don't screw around. Sufficiency of the reservation. Any expression, can you see that? Any expression indicating an intention to preserve rights is sufficient, such as without prejudice, under protest, under reservation, with reservation of all our rights, under duress is another one. The code states an explicit reservation must be made. Explicit undoubtedly is used in place of express to indicate that the reservation must not only be expressed, but it must also be clear, under duress, that such a reservation was intended in advance, right? The term explicit as used in UCC 1-207 means that which is so clearly